Hey everybody, Danny Maude here, head professional at the Academy Golf Club in Kent. In this week's training, I'm going to deal with a very popular question from many of my YouTubers wanting to know how to hinge their wrists correctly in the downswing. It can often be a very confusing subject, but it really doesn't have to be. So let's get cracking. Why do we actually hinge our wrists in the first place? Well, the best way I can show you this, if we were going to throw a ball and we didn't hinge our wrists, we wouldn't throw it very far. We need a hinge to add a lever in order to add some control and some whip through the shot. It adds a bit of leverage. But the other aspect of a wrist hinge is not just to, in a sense, add leverage, but it's also to add the type of pressure that's required on the golf ball to generate that power and that control. So what we're going to discuss today is exactly how we go about creating the correct wrist hinge, and what a lot of golfers do, which unfortunately is the opposite to what's required. They tend to get the wrist working in the wrong direction. So let me explain. So the correct wrist hinge is a hinge whereby the wrist folds here, so the pressure of the right hand is still on top of the golf club. So what we're trying to do is the hinging up here, as opposed to what a lot of golfers do. They tend to work the club around here. What we're trying to do is get the club much more online here, so that the right hand is almost having a pressure going down on the ground here, not turning around. Now traditionally, a lot of people have talked about hinging the wrists here and almost rolling the face so the toe points to the sky, but that is not what we want. What we want to have is a hinge where the club here is almost at a 45-degree angle, okay, is in between the ball line and the feet here, and the right hand is still on top of the golf club, ready to put a pressure back down on the ball here. I'm going to show you this from another angle. So let's have a look at it from here. So this is what a lot of people do when they hinge their wrist. If you look at my right hand here, they tend to fan the club open here, and they're turning the club to the right. What we want to do in terms of the hinging the wrists is we want to hinge it this way. So if you look at here, my right hand is still on top, and as we move the camera over here, the clubs that what you see here are 45-degree angle. Now a lot of people ask, well, when do you hinge the wrists? Well, some people hinge it earlier than others, so there's no exact science with this, but the key thing is all about what we're trying to do at the golf ball, which is to put pressure on the golf ball. So here what we want to do is we want to hinge the wrists here. You can see my right hand is on top, this would be underneath. This is not what we want. It's a hinge in here, and then from this position we're going to work up here, and I'll show you exactly from the other camera angle how that works. So how do we go about creating this wrist hinge in the backswing so it's not just an artificial flick of the wrists here? Because although this looks pretty good and it's online in exactly what we've been talking about, it kind of wouldn't work as effectively than if we were to engage the body. What a lot of people do when they take a tip, maybe from a YouTuber like myself, what they tend to do is they'll kind of look at that and think, okay, I've got to get right hand on top, and they kind of move the club up here, but there's nothing here. The arms aren't engaged, and it just becomes an artificial movement. We need to integrate this into a golf swing in a very athletic way. So what we're doing is when I'm over this golf ball here, what we've got to remember is we've got to put a pressure down into the ground here. And watch this, if I put a pressure with the handle going down, the club wants to move upwards. This is very different to just a flick up. So from here what we're going to do is, as we move back and I'm pushing down here, I've got that club look at that 45-degree angle what we were talking about. My right hand is still on top, and I'm pushing upwards here. Now I've got the correct hinge, and I've got energy in that golf swing to deliver, look, pressure back down to that golf ball. I'll show you from this angle. So I'm pushing down here, pushing the handle down, that gets the head starting to come up here. I've got pressure, my right hand is still on top. I can work that club up in a position, look, to put a pressure back down on that golf ball. Very different to a swing that just literally picks the club up here, looks pretty up here, but nothing's really engaged here. So that is how we work on the correct wrist hinge in the backswing. So in summary, why do we need a wrist hinge in the first place? Wrist hinge adds leverage to add power, just like throwing a ball. And we need to add a pressure going down onto the ground, and we need that correct wrist hinge to do that. Without it, we can't apply the pressure, we can't get control, and we can't get distance. How do we do this? Get yourself set up in position. The right hand folds here, the right hand stool is on top, as you see it hasn't rotated, it's still on top here. And from this position here, we're going to hinge and we're going to allow the club just to simply work upwards. As that upwards motion is gone, we can now put a pressure down on the ground. But remember, we're not trying here just to kind of flick the wrist up in the air with no engagement and no pressure. We need to make sure that when we're doing this, there's a pushingness, an extension here. Okay, that needs to engage, because without it, it just becomes a weak swing. From here, as we push here, we push the handle, the club starts to move backwards, up into position to allow that club to come back down on that golf ball. I hope this video was really, really helpful, guys. If you've got any questions, as normal, please put them in the comments box below. And if you want to receive this content every single week, subscribe to the channel and don't forget to press the bell so it goes straight into your inbox. Until next week, have a great golfing week.